Ooh, child, you know how you don't want to be late or whatever. At first, I had 10 minutes. The next thing you know, I have no minutes. Oh, y'all got me out here all raw and unfiltered. So let's hurry up and get this screen share on. We're going to be talking about the physical body a little bit and taking care of it, thinking about it in a different way. Let's say it like that. Thinking about it in a different way. We talk about physical fitness, going to the gym, what you put in your body, and things of that sort, right? And so, my idea today is to get you to think about that in a different way. See if any shifts can happen for us, okay? So we're talking about caring for the body like a temple. I think it is in the Bible, because you know I have the most experience reading that piece of religious work there. Um, First Corinthians, I want to say chapter 6. Let me see. I don't want to tell her that. What if somebody goes, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's the stuff I be. Excuse me. Hold on though. Okay, let me see. First Corinthians. And then we're gonna get it started. Could it be? Let me take a chance on it. First Corinthians 6:19 through 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples, okay, of the Holy Spirit who is where in you, within you? And it tells you where you have received yourself from, all that good stuff, right? So thinking about temples, and there's a lot of other cultures and other religious works that talk about this as well, and likening the body to a temple. So we're going to explore those parallels today between temples, which are considered to be sacred spaces, and then if we consider our body to be a temple, then what's going on with this sacred space, okay? We're going to do the presentation quick. Let me start this timer, and then we'll go into some general discussion. So any questions that you have, pop them into the chat or save them to the end, and then we'll get it going, okay? So for the most part, we know that temples are considered places of reverence, right? Maybe you need to be quiet. There's some things taking place. As far as architecture, it can be a site of beauty as well, right? But a lot of people view temples as spiritual connection. They are usually designed with the intention of using it for some type of flow. Okay. And what people don't know is it has a lot of sacred geometry, a lot of symmetry uh, in the design as well. Okay. If you pay attention, you do a little study, you'll see a lot of those similarities there. When I talk about flow, sometimes temples are designed in a way when you think of, is it feng shui? Is that how you say it? That's not my language, so I may be saying it wrong, but you know what I'm trying to talk about. Okay. So the way our bodies are designed are thought to be in the same fashion, okay, with this geometry, with this symmetry, with this flow. And when you talk about the symbol for the male and the female, you have the upright triangle, and then you have the inverted triangle, right? Which is like for the womb. Okay, you put those two things together, you have this particular star. But we're not going to go there. We're just looking on the surface, talking about a few things that you can investigate further. And I put a couple of examples there on this slide, coming from a couple of different places. What you see on the right lower side is also what they call the tree of life. I just wanted to shout that out really quick, okay? But if we take an opportunity to examine like our skeletal system, how our organs are placed, the neural wiring that we have, it becomes easier to see that our bodies are built with a type of precision, right? It's not just boom, a bang, and it came into existence. But there is a system that works together there, right? And if one part is out of line, then it can throw other parts out of line. And if we continue being misaligned for a while, it can be a detriment to this little vehicle that we have, right? So what we have going on with our little meat suit, it's a living, breathing, sacred space, okay? As far as physical structure, you see that temples will have columns and altars and sanctuaries, and some makeups, like when you think about the Holy of Holies, right? Then there are sacred chambers where only certain actions can happen. Only certain actions will happen, and only those who meet the rank are able to witness those rituals or processes, right? And then you have the body that has the spine that people consider as the central pillar. The heart has been likened to the inner sanctuary. The brain also being the Holy of Holies, because we're thinking that that's where the mind is, right? And then we don't want to forget about that pineal gland, I think is how you say it, right? There's a lot of talk about that. When we're talking about the spine, you can put the spleen in there, right? But for the most part, people talk about chakras, right? And it's chakras, not it's chakras, right? So people have that conversation as well. So today, I just want to invite you to um, consider, how do you currently see your body? Do you see it as something that's functioning well? Do you see it as something that's broken down? Do you see it as something that is taking on stress from the world and therefore does not operate properly? Do you see it as something that you cannot improve upon? Do you see yourself as the body misaligned, in alignment with your daily activities, with your spiritual practices, if you have those? Just with what your vision and your goal is. How do you see that? Where do you feel most sacred or connected to life within your body, right? Are there any spaces, any parts of your body that you treat as holy? Everyone doesn't have access to, okay? Do you feel that you have an inner sanctuary? If you do, then where is it? Is it in your heart? Is it in your mind? Is it in your gut? Okay. Anywho, but I just want you guys to take a look, because let me look over here really quick. You'll see how this whole layout, okay, of this temple, there's an entrance gate here, but you see the altar sacrifice, right? It's at the feet there. Then you have these are names from the Bible too, by the way, or it might be from the Torah, or I don't want to misspeak. But you'll see the Holy of Holies here, which is looking like someone's head, right? This says something about a turban right here. But you see the high priest here. And if you were talking about chakras, then this would be the crown, right? Chakra or whatnot. Holy place being those insides. And this kind of looks like a rib cage a little bit. Here you see the temple in human form as well. What is his name? Is it going to be Krishna? Oh, but you see, again, there's that tippy top piece, right? Tippy top piece. What is it connecting to? That's that tree of life right there. And then this is again that holy and holy, the inner court, the outer court, and then thinking of it as the spirit, the soul, and the body. So just a couple of things that you can investigate a little bit further if that's something that's of interest to you today is let's keep it right along. So talk about the foundation of the temple, right? Foundation of the temple. So just like you have a temple standing on strong pillars and beams, the skeleton is the body's framework. It's what's holding everything together, right? If we were to have damage to our spine and our spinal cord, it would incapacitate us in some way, right? We might become a quadriplegic, a paraplegic, right? But there would be some limitation to the mobility in our bodies. So much so that there are procedures nowadays where you may be able to enter rods, but it's not just to the skeletal structure, right? It's all of those nerve endings that are being damaged as well, right? So there's an interruption in communication. So just as the temple is standing on strong pillars and they have beams, then the skeletal system is our body's framework, right? So if we don't have a solid foundation, then our entire temple, our whole body, this whole vehicle is unstable, right? And what becomes the most vulnerable? It's going to be the housing that is the most vulnerable, right? The skeleton um, gives this protective chamber, so to speak, like the rib cage. And encased in there, what's in there is your heart, you have your lungs in there. And then when you're talking about the skull, your brain is housed in the skull, right? If you liken that to the temples, then there may be sacred artifacts or scrolls or scriptures, law books, things of that sort, processes that are in those inner sanctuaries, and not everybody has access to that, right? So in the body, we have our vital organs, and those are guarded with our bone chambers, those inner chambers, right? You have the pelvic bone that our reproductive system kind of cuddles up into as well. And a lot of times in comparisons or parallels, you'll see that the skull is acting like a sacred dome that's housing the brain. Okay, so that's the second control center where our wisdom, our memory, and our consciousness is thought to reside. And just as temples restrict access to their innermost sanctums, then the brain is highly protected. Protected by whom? Ourselves, right? There's this saying that, or I have heard people say, when we are talking about being holy, or if there's a demon or a devil or Satan roaming about seeking to devour someone, right? So the difference between God and the difference between Satan is that what you speak out loud, right, can be heard by the adversary, right? But what you keep to yourself cannot be heard. The only thing that can be done is to observe your habits, right? What you do, your patterns of behavior. That is something that gives you, that gives you away. But if you're not audibly sharing information, then that's something that is held sacred and kept secret, right? Within. So the brain is highly protected and it has barriers like that skull. There's the blood-brain barrier as well. And so I really want you to think about daily habits that strengthen your system. What are you doing today that strengthens your protective barrier? Is it drinking milk? Remember that milk does the body good. Now you have to do your research on that. I don't want to go too deep in that, but for some people, certain things don't work. I talked about that as far as grounding. A lot of people talk about going out in nature, but there's some people where nature frightens them. It causes them more anxiety than it does peace of mind, right? And that can be the same thing when we're talking about foods that our body can tolerate and how it works with our body, right? So if something is not making us feel well, some people are lactose intolerant. So it can't be the only thing that does a body good, right? So it's okay to invest some time, or I suggest spending some time understanding what your body aligns with as far as nourishment and certain herbs and things of that sort. If that's your thing, consult your medical doctor, whatever may be the most appropriate. There's actually, I met a person who has an allergy to meat, right? And some people are willing to sacrifice those allergies. Some people have that EpiPen and they're just going to punch it. But is that the best thing for our bodies? Do we respect our body enough to listen to it when it's talking to us in that way? I also have my personal experience not being able to keep animal protein down, and I had to just finally give it up. And it ended up being the best thing for my body and what I was going through at the time, you see. So, but was there a time when I'm trying to reintroduce it into my diet? Yes. And does it give trouble? Yes, it does. Bubble guts, just be on high alert, okay? So is that fair to my body? If I consider my body a temple, right? And it's saying this is not, it's not processing, this is not something that I'm aligned with, why would I keep pushing my body to try to be in alignment with that, right? Then that's just me thinking out loud, right? So I'm not judging anybody or calling anybody out. That's for you to know and for me not to find out. All right. But think about that. Strengthening how your body functions, whether it be about posture, whether it be about endurance, building muscle, reducing fat, getting your gut bacteria balanced, um, taking care and moisturizing the biggest organ that you have, which is your skin, right? What type of nutrition, what are the boundaries, your mental health, your mindset, right? So think about where you feel the most vulnerable right now. How might you be able to strengthen your foundation in that area to protect that space? Um, Temples, they have priests or caretakers, right, who perform rituals to keep the sacred space cleaned and aligned, right? So whether that's going to be communion or whether that's when I've never been Catholic before, but you know, on TV, they're always depicting the rituals when they have that little a little pot and it's smoking. I don't know if they're smudging or whatever they're doing. I don't know if it's incense. I'm not exactly sure what that is because I have not been in that practice before. But you see it smoking, okay? The process that they go through to choose a new pope and all of those things. Baptist church and how they do things, how an usher board might be organized and how they interact with the congregation and keep the service organized. Baptism practices, blessing babies with the holy water and all those things. Vows of silence, fasting, okay, all those type of things. So in our body, we have all different kinds of hormones and enzymes and immune cells, and those act as our caretakers, right? That's balancing the inner environment. So if you're at a temple, maybe there's offerings daily, monthly, at some type of frequency, right? Maybe there's that incense burning, like I said. Maybe there's cleansing ceremonies. If we parallel that with our physical vehicle here, we have breath, right? We have digestion, and you can consider that the food that you take in is offerings to your temple, you know? Um, when you detox, whether that be with fruits and vegetables, or some people do liquid diet, some people do, is it Epsom salt? I've never done one of those. They have those saline washes and things like that that doctors give you before a surgery or something. Um, Again, fasting for an amount of hours, 12 to 14 hours, 1 to 3 days, 7 to 40 days, you know, being on a water diet, right? A lot of people have attested to that. Some people are on that OMAD, right? So those are those daily rituals, and we don't think of them as rituals, but health routines are basically rituals, things that we do and practice every day for a certain benefit. So we could treat our meals as offerings by eating with intention, right? Having gratitude for what our body is taking in and being aligned with that. When we breathe, that can be considered something like smudging in the temple. Okay. We don't really realize how much breath does for us. Being able to have that practice every day, that cleansing of everything. But again, I digress. Check it out though. Don't take my word for it. Um, digestive fire. So some temples have an eternal flame, and it's supposed to represent divine presence. And so what we have is our body's metabolic fire, right? That keeps us alive and warm, um, keeps things being processed for nutrients coming in and trash going out. If something happens with our metabolism, our body experiences things that are out of alignment, right? So with the temple, you have a fire that's representing the light and the guidance and the life force. And so with our body, that digestive fire, and you can dig more into that if you're interested. I think it's called Ayurveda. I want to say it's an Indian thing, right? But it's about how um, our digestive system is breaking down food into usable energy, things that you can use, things that you should avoid. And again, processes by which you consume certain things. Some people are like, only drink water when you first wake up in the morning. Some people say, drink water before you brush your teeth before you put anything into your digestive system because of the bacteria that collects in your mouth, right? So if you're drinking that, you're putting that bacteria into your gut. Again, not signing off on anything. I'm just talking about general things that people talk about, things that they may participate in, okay? So think about what habits are fueling your inner fire, okay? And what habits put it out? What habits extinguish your fire? The eating late at night, or some people are very adamant about where they eat if they're eating out. Some people are only preparing their own meals for various reasons. It can be about the energy from the person making your meals. I'm very particular about that. Um, it's in a joking way, but also serious with my girls, because when they get together, there would be like sometimes a little bit of back and forth. And if I'm cooking, I'm like, don't come in here in my kitchen with that. Take that in the other room. Even though they're not fighting, but I'm very big on energy because food can be medicine if you know how to use it, you know how to put it together, right? And what we're feeling inside, I'm a very big believer in energy, right? And energy affects everything because everything has a frequency. And so if I want my food to be healing and nourishing, right? And I want it to build up the individuals that I'm feeding it to, then I must be in that same energetic flow. Okay, I gotta match that frequency. All right, so I'm very intentional about when I'm cooking. And if I don't feel like cooking, I'm not gonna cook because the energy is off, the flow is all wrong, right? So why would I transfer um that resistance into the meals for my family? So if I don't want to cook, I actually don't cook. But most of the time I'm happy about cooking, especially if it's something that my family likes. Um, Temples can sometimes be filled with chanting depending on who you are and what practices you have, right? There can be bells, although it seems like they've removed a lot of the bells, because in the Bible Belt, right, there's a lot of churches, but you hardly ever hear a bell these days. Some people have music, there's organs and choirs and things of that sort, right? But all of that is, again, a vibration. And the hymns, the music, the chanting, all that is going on in the temple is meant to keep it at a high vibration. Okay. And just the same, our bodies create its own rhythm. We have the rhythm of our heartbeats, right? If it's too low, it's a problem. If it's too high, it's a problem, right? We have the breathing that keeps a rhythm for us. We have our brain wave patterns and what it responds to as well. There is the Om chant, right? And that in itself is thought to be a positive affirmation, right? And something that tunes our inner little tuning fork, okay? something that attunes and purifies our body, puts us back into alignment. So if we're humming, who is it? The Monroe Institute. I don't know if you heard of them before, but they've done some things, and I think I want to say that the CIA did a paper on them as well, published some papers about them, but some of their tapes or sound bites, whatever you call it, guided meditations involve doing some humming as well. There's that singing. Laughter is good medicine as well and creates a vibration or a frequency that we can align with. But all of that, all those frequencies, negative or positive, whether it causes anxiety or calm, right? It affects the nervous system. And so you want to find sounds that heal and align with the nervous system for optimal performance. I am suggesting that. Okay. I am suggesting that. Because the group is so varied and we really haven't talked about, religious beliefs and practices and things of that sort. I don't want to muddy the waters in any way or make anyone feel comfortable. So we will not, I would usually do, that's why in these cases, one-on-one might be better because we can go over like something very specific, but because the group is very, I don't want to do that. So I like to do an exercise with a hum, but we won't do it today. But at the Monroe Institute, check it out. Just check it out. Nothing wrong with information. People think if they look at information, they have to apply it. But sometimes information just expands your view on something and sometimes fills in the missing holes for other things that you're already involved in. Nutrition and mindset, right? What you put in is what you get now. If you put in trash, you're going to get out trash, right? Think of, I once said, think about it like being on a radio frequency and then tuning in. Well, what you're putting in mentally and physically, that's that piece of foil, right? That knocks off that tuning. It's interfering with that frequency, right? Getting to that right dial, getting to that clarity. So what you bring into your temple matters, right? And offerings are usually chosen with care, even though we may not think of it that way. But if you changed it that way, what would you offer yourself? Now, a lot of people have some other entity that they offer things to, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about what we offer our body daily that shapes its health, mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? So flowers and food and prayers and incense, those are these physical things that we have, right? But what do they represent? If we're talking about nutrients and hydration, movement, affirmations, how you talk to yourself, the people that you're around, the type of content that you engage when you're online, how you speak about yourself, but also how you speak about other individuals, how you lift other individuals up, how you build them or break them down, right? And I don't want anybody to think that, oh, everything, sometimes the way things are being handled doesn't feel very positive, but it's building, like constructive criticism, right? It's not something meant to break you down. It's something that's meant to build you, although some people see it as a negative. Does that make sense? Okay. And then we often think that, oh, we can forget about the darkness that we have, right? There's always this duality in our lives. And that's what self-love and acceptance is about, is understanding that duality and being able to accept it and how you can use it. Without your shadow self, you probably would not protect yourself. You probably would not establish boundaries, right? Because that's not always going to involve being pleasant or being viewed as pleasant, unless sometimes you start feeling like a doormat and you have to give the no, right? Without that shadow, there can be no darkness without the light, right? And sometimes, I won't get into that. Anywho, back to nutrition and mindset, right? So again, are you putting the necessary things that your body requires to be an optimal function in your body? Are you doing it artificially with some supplements? Because all supplements are not natural, right? And then does your body begin to depend on those things? Do you have some uplifting thoughts that you can insert within your day? Um, like, are you being mindful about those things and being intentional about those things, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? Okay. Then you have your immune system, the boundaries, the things that shutting this out and no entry here, no entry there, right? Because if it comes in, it disrupts the alignment. So temples have thresholds and people have to enter respectfully, right? Sometimes you have to complete a purification process. I had an experience with, I want to say Sunni Muslim. I don't know why I have not clarified that. I want to say Sunni Muslim, but before they would touch the Quran, there was a process that they would go through to cleanse themselves before being able to read that and talk to me about it. Okay. Um, and just the same, then our body has boundaries, right? We have our skin that serves as a boundary. We have our immune system that serves as a boundary. But a lot of times we forget about the energetic field that we have as well. Some people say, oh, this person moves a room. You can feel the energy of someone in the room, even if they're not speaking, right? Maybe people are off-putting, and it's just by their presence. Some people you feel creeped out by. Some people you feel comfortable around. Even if you just met them for 5 minutes, you feel like you know them forever. That has to do with the frequency and the energy that we are emitting. Well, how do we feed that? How do we cultivate that energy? And are we being intentional about the energy that we cultivate? Are we being authentic in our cultivation of that energy, right? So at a temple, they might have gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are guarding who's coming in and who might have to get kicked out, honey. Okay. But with our body, our immune system is doing that, right? It's giving the yes and it's giving the no. It's identifying things that are sneaking in, looking like something, but it's really something else, right? And it tries to rid itself of that. You got that RH, is it RH negative? And it tries to fight against it, right? We have the autoimmune disorders that try to fight against the body, right? So how can those things be brought into alignment, right? So what energy are we letting in? And again, everything is energy, so everything vibrates at a frequency. Are we being intentional about that? What type of people do we let into our lives? What type of foods do we put into our temple? You see how everything just kind of comes together and it's a whole system of things. Um, Try this, because I think this will be a very interesting thing when you stop to think about it. If you think about entrances and exits, right? Because an exit can sometimes also be an entrance. Please don't go there and let your mind wander way too far left. Let's keep it right, okay? Let's get that shadow in check. But no, right? Because with your mouth, you can put food in, but if you regurgitate, right, you throwing up, something's coming out. Should it be coming out? Your body is rejecting it. Listen to it, right? We have our ears, we have our eyes, we have our nose. You have a couple of southern holes, right? The skin can be compromised and punctured, and things can come out or things can go in. You see what I'm saying? You have your gut. They have the thing, the leaky gut syndrome, right? So something unnatural is happening there, but what should be kept in is now leaking out. Okay, so I like to do a little map of the body and then mark all the gates, okay, where you decide what you're letting in. Okay, your mind, what kind of food, what kind of relationships, what kind of information. When they had the pandemic and they were saying, oh, you gotta make sure you wash. It's amazing how many people don't wash their hands. And you know it's true because I'm pretty sure most people have been in a public bathroom. And have you ever been in there and it's your turn to do your due and the other person's supposed to be finished, but you don't hear no water come on? You just hear the stop. You hear the door clack, but you don't hear. They don't even try to fake it. You see what I'm saying? So even when you wash your hands, there's people that still got doorknobs and things like that. You gotta understand that if they didn't wash their hands before, they left these invisible things that are just waiting to try to invade your gates. They're trying to get through the door. Okay. And what are they doing to your body? People who don't prepare foods properly and getting through the gates of your mouth. What is it doing to your body? What is it doing to your temple? How is it invading your temple? Relationships that cause extreme stress. What is it doing to your temple? Adverse information, being misdiagnosed, being misled, right? Cult leaders are very misleading. What is that doing to your temple? Okay. We have the very beautiful reproductive system. And I know this seems to focus on, it's not really about a female or a male, okay? We all have our reproductive parts unless they have been removed, right? And we know that reproduction is about creation, right? I paused right there because I was trying to think about if I was gonna, dive deeper, but I promised that this would just be foundational, so I won't do it here. But in the 11 o'clock group, we do that. Okay. So a lot of temples have spaces that are dedicated to fertility rites, rites, okay? And you might not know that. Or maybe having offerings for new life, like with um, they have the dedication services for babies when they're born, right? You'll have the family there. I want to say it's Baptist, Christian, Church of God in Christ. I've been in those services, so I know for sure that happens there. And you'll have the godparents, the parents, and they're dedicating the baby to the Lord or whatnot. You have, where the baby gets the holy water on the forehead. I've only seen that depicted. I have not been part of one of those services, but there's different symbols of creation that happens in temples and churches. Uh, what are they called? Halls and things of that sort. Spaces that are considered sacred, okay? And our reproductive system is a holy space as well for creation. That's why your grandma tell you, don't let everybody into your loins. Don't give everybody your seed, right? Because not only creating life, but a lot of people don't think about when they are co-creating in life, right? Um, again, it's those energetic bodies coming together. If they cannot be aligned, right? You don't even understand how that's creating interference, right? Where you're trying to tune your radio, it's creating interference on you getting on the right station or vice versa. And you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, he got with her knowing that he was going to mess up her life. She got with him knowing that she was going to mess up, knocking out of alignment, but we invite that alignment. Okay. Everything that glitters isn't gold. We invite that alignment. We invite that stress. We invite that drama. We invite that interruption, right? So our reproductive system is literally a holy space, okay? So whether that's going to be physical children, people talk about creating legacies, okay? If it's about creative ideas and our vision, it's sacred renewal, all right? Even I know we consider our cycles to be a pain, our menstrual cycles, right? But it is a process of renewal that happens in us, and it happens automatically, right? And it goes in these seasonal cycles. And there's many seasonal cycles that are also celebrated in temples. All right. So a lot of things that are available on a physical plane, all of these things are happening in this body. There are a lot of co-creative things happening in this body, right? Uh, whether we get enough rest, that's a cycle. Being able to be in the dream state, being able to be in the consciousness, the subconscious, right? Um, having periods of shedding, all of that is part of this vehicle's maintenance, this temple maintenance, right? So, if we talk in metaphysical terms, then the reproductive system is where potential becomes manifest, right? So, before anything shows up outwardly on our bodies, first it starts brewing within, and then we start to see it. Something inside is happening, and then it may start showing through our skin, right? Um, affecting our bones, affecting our hair, affecting our nails, affecting the bottom of the heels on on our feet, right? So, but something internally has already been brewing, and then it shows up on the outside. As to with manifestation, it has already happened energetically before you see it, quote unquote, physically. They always say that, physical reality is a step behind because that's already brewing before it comes to uh, something tangible. Okay. So creativity isn't just biological, it includes birthing projects, visions, future possibilities, right? So ask yourself, what are you currently creating in your life, whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then how are you nurturing that creation? A lot of times we want for things, right? But we're not nurturing that thing. We're not creating an environment for that thing. We're not giving rest to the thing, right? We're constantly worried about this or worried about that, right? There's a belief and then there's a knowing. And those two are not the same things. I believe this will happen. There's a assurance that something will happen. I think we talked about that last week. Having faith and sitting on that chair. That chair is going to hold you. You never question it. But lots of times we question what we're trying to create in our lives, the freedom that we want to have, and whether that's available to us, who we believe ourselves to be, right? And whether we have the right to be that person. We question that a lot, but not that chair though. Off the soapbox. So paying attention to the seasons and the cycles. If something happens with our nervous system, people don't realize that nervous system is tied to the sweat glands, right? And sweating is how your body ventilates itself. Um, your nervous system, if it's in ill repair, can affect your digestive system and how your large and small intestine, what is that called? It does its process to move your poop along, okay, get your little turds out. So everything, all the energy, food energy, word energy, attitude energy, inner engagement energy, whatever is brought into our world, near our temple, into our temple, sexual energy, those are offerings to our temple that should be chosen with care. Okay. Because what we offer in our bodies daily nurtures it, builds it, shapes it, cultivates it, right? So it's important for us to be mindful of what we bring into our space and allow into our inner sanctuary. What are you bringing to your temple today, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? That's not it in your highest good. What cycles are you participating in that's running interference for you, keeping you from moving forward, keeping you on the hamster wheel? And it's not always other people. Hint, hint. It's not always other people. A lot of times it's really just a focus that we need to have on ourselves. We don't like to hear it, but it's true. It's so true. So anywho, the takeaway, let me let you guys get up out of here so we could talk a little bit. So what's the takeaway? We explored a little bit about the body and it being a living temple, right? We talked about foundations, we talked about inner chambers, the digestive gut fire, sounds and the humming and getting our body in tune, sacred rhythms that we have for creation. But really, this is just foundational. It's a jumping point, right? There's the system, the information, the conversation definitely goes a little bit deeper, right? So if we were just thinking about caring for our bodies as a temple, the rhythm, the ritual, the reverence, if we treated our bodies like that, how might life change for you today? Because our journeys are deeply personal. We might not like to hear that either. We say that we're a unique individual, so why wouldn't our journeys be unique and individual as well? But just take the time this week to reflect. What processes keep your inner temple clean and vibrant and functioning at its best? Okay. Are there things that need to be cleared out? Well, what are the offerings that you're bringing to your temple every day? What kind of foods? What kind of loving thoughts? What kind of negative thoughts? Creative expressions. What are things you can start bringing to your temple for it to perform at its best? Okay. Challenge yourself about committing to one practice that you can, I'm sorry, guys, committing to one practice this week to honor your inner temple. How can you treat your body as sacred, right? Whether it be your thoughts, your actions, your habits, how can you honor, what did it say? I said the Holy Spirit within you, right? So the spirit within you, the consciousness that you breathe every day, whatever animates this body, how can you honor that? How can you cultivate that? How can you build it? How can you get it to perform optimally? Okay, think about that because that's really how self-love grows. You're just having one intentional act at a time, and it doesn't need to be anything big. Again, foundational. Just first thinking about the things that you can practically do every day, because we always think that it's this grand thing that's happening, right? But in everything that we do, it's just about being intentional. It doesn't necessarily have to be work. We create habits, but we can change that habit as well, right? So if we have practices and patterns of behavior that aren't healthy for us, then we can actually make a choice to adopt a new pattern of behavior, right? And it just becomes something that comes every day. It's automatic, okay? So I encourage everybody to be a devoted caretaker of your sacred temple. Think of your body that way, men and women. And not just your own body, but when you look at somebody else and when you enter their space, challenge yourself to think about merging temples, right? What kind of energy are you trying to leave with that individual? What kind of energy are you accepting into your temple, into your mind, into your heart, into your body? Okay. And I think that you can see something different with alignment, especially with the blueprint within you. And when you see that blueprint within you change, then your outer changes, right? Because whatever's stirring up on the inside eventually manifests on the outside. And our bodies are a great model of that when we're talking about health, when we're talking about illnesses, right? It first starts within before we ever see it happening on the outside. It's usually at a critical moment at that time. So we'll go ahead and close it out. All right. And open up some conversation. I did not look at the chat and I apologize, but let's go through some of those things too. Un momento, por favor.